Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody is doing fine. Uh, and for everybody putting where they are joining us from in the chat, really appreciate it. Kindly continue to put where you're joining us in the chat. Yeah, our audio is on now. We were waiting a little bit to get everything situated and also to have our panelists make sure they are all ready to go. So we are going to start off here tonight. We are going to continue our discussion from last week, and we are going to pivot a little bit, look more also at PCI, the role it plays in GRC as a whole. And mostly people are looking at, okay, should I go PCI or GRC? But PCI falls under GRC, right? The big umbrella of GRC. So we are going to dive deep into that. And our panel members, we had almost like 7 or 8, but some of them are running a bit late. That is why we waited for a little bit, but we're still going to kickstart and continue the conversation. So as we are going along, kindly feel free if you have any questions, raise your virtual hand, and we are going to take it from there. So we are officially starting. You are welcome to Eretmis Cyber Chat. If this is your first time of joining us, we do this every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we appreciate you joining us. And this is where we share cybersecurity knowledge with the whole entire community and with the Eretmis family. So you are welcome. We are going to kickstart. Isosa, if you are here, if you can give me a thumbs up, I'll pin you and add you on here. Isosa is going to be my co-pilot for tonight. So I'm going to run through, do the admin stuff, and then hand it over to Isosa and we'll start. All right, so we are transmitting live on YouTube as well. You are welcome once again. This is brought to you by Eretmis Inc., Eretmis Academy. Eretmis Academy is a cybersecurity institute based out of New York, and I'm going to be your instructor for tonight with my co-pilot, Isosa, and Dr. Emmanuel Ledoux, a cybersecurity consultant, cybersecurity, anything you want to call me. I'm a former United States Army captain. I'm a PCI QSA, and I run a QSA company, Eretmis Inc. A QSA company, a cybersecurity consulting firm based out of New York as well. And I'm also the founder of Eretmis Academy. I'm a former professor at University of Maryland Global Campus and CTC. So with that, we will move into some of the housekeeping stuff. So we are partners with CompTIA, Eretmis Academy. We are partners with CompTIA. And what does that mean to you? Should you really care about this? Well, what that means is that we have 20% discount when it comes to vouchers, and we push that down to everybody who joins us for cyber chats. And if you're part of the Eretmis family, so if you want to take advantage of the 20%, kindly reach out to either service at Eretmis or David at Eretmis, and they will show you the path to getting the 20% discount. Now, also for everyone who has Security Plus, Security Analyst, or any other certification in the security space, every 3 years you have to renew your certification, right? So there are two ways you can renew. You can either sit for the exam again, or you can use continuous educational points to renew. So for the continuous educational points, as you are here tonight joining Cyber Chat, that counts towards your continuous educational points. And most people on here have used this to renew their Security Plus and other certifications. So I think you only have to you have to type Team Live in the chat and take a screenshot of it, and you can use that towards your continuous education points. So for everybody who is new to the family, we have a WhatsApp group. We are almost like 1,000 on there. Cybersecurity WhatsApp group, very decent group, right? Unlike other WhatsApp groups. Well, all that we do there is strictly cybersecurity. If you need help, information, you have something to share with the community, you put it on there as well. So link will be posted if you want to join the cyber. And then also, without joining the group, you can follow Eretmis Cyber Chat on the WhatsApp channel. WhatsApp has channels now. You can follow Eretmis Cyber Chat also as well. So everything that we are doing when we post it, you'll be able to have access to it as well. Now, YouTube, last week we were at 770 something, right? Our agenda is to hit 1 million subscribers by October 2024. And today we are 810. So we are gradually getting there. We appreciate everybody's support. So everything that we are doing here on Cyber Chat, we post on YouTube. It is being streamed live, and then we also post the video on there as well. So you can kindly join our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Very educative, very informative. Everything that we do here, we put it on there as well. So kindly help the channel grow and help us achieve 1 million subscribers by the end of October. Now we are going to go through cyber chats, cyber news, and then we will look at our roundtable discussion on the role of PCI DSS in cybersecurity GRC. Now we are going to go through where we left off last week and then branch off into tonight's discussion. So we're jumping into cyber news. Now, before we jump into cyber news that Dr. Edu has, if you think if you had any cyber news that is worth sharing to the group, please raise your virtual hand and we will allow you to also share as well. Right. Renee, please go ahead.
Okay, I think I have two. One was that AT&T had a cybersecurity threat again. They sent out notification to all of their customers to let them know that they had a breach. I don't know what happened, but that's all the information I got. And then I think there was a medical or hospital Ascension. They had a cybersecurity threat as well, and they hired a security threat team cybersecurity team to assist.
Oh, okay. So, has AT&T, did they have like a cyber incident this year, or
Yeah,
this
they had
is
it
like
May
the first
5th.
time?
May 5th.
Oh, okay. Okay. Not that good. All right. So, thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
Anyone else with cyber news for the week? Something you had on the news or you read, right? So, whilst we're waiting for other folks to bring their news, we are going to. Oh, Jackie, please go ahead.
I had that Dell had a data breach this week.
Dell?
Yeah, Dell, yes.
Yeah, I think I came across
And
that.
yeah,
Oh, wow. Like, do you have any more information on what the breach was about? I mean, how the attackers were able to get onto their network and all that, or you have
I heard that
that
they were
information?
able to get access to I think the client's locations. I didn't really pretty much read the whole thing in detail.
Okay,
I just read it, yes.
okay, thank you. So, I mean, so these companies, Dell and the big players, when they got breached, don't be too surprised, right? Getting breached is a matter of when. Anybody can get breached. It's a matter of when, right? But what is going to help you is if you have a good incident response program in place that is going to help you bounce back within the shortest possible time. That is what you should be aiming for. And then also making sure you don't get breached in the first place. But risks, there's nothing like zero risks. So, right. Now, please go ahead, Mike, and then Rita. You are muted, Mike, if you're trying to speak. Okay, Rita, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just confirming what the other speakers talked about, the AT&T breach.
Oh,
My information was actually put out there, and they sent me a letter at home to inform me that they're going to give me 1 year free monitoring for because of that breach. So they said if I had any other questions, I should reach out to their security team. So it is pretty serious. This is the first time I've been hit um, by this kind of I don't want to say negligence, but yeah, someone was affected and it happens to be me.
wow, sorry about that. Now, so quick question though, I mean, anybody can answer this one. So, are they under, like these companies, are they under any obligation to notify you if there is a breach? Right. Sometimes like they try to kind of, shove it under the rag, right? Like they try to cover up. But are they under is there any law that obliges them to, or anything on that line that can take them to jail or anybody's take on that? Are they required to inform you?
Yes, they are required to inform the customer when they have a breach. Yes, they are. We've gotten notification in writing telling us if they have an issue with anything that's going on that's affecting the customer. They must notify us and let us know.
Okay.
And sometimes I think the reason why may be because we can do like a class action lawsuit against the company. And I think that's what they're trying to avoid. So I don't know for a fact, but I know that they have to notify the client.
Okay.
They first have to notify the government within 72 hours. And then after that, stakeholders.
Okay. So let's say the breach affected only 10 people. Are they still required to inform those 10 people and the government?
I mean, yeah, that would be nice. They should definitely do that.
Yes, I guess.
I think from 500 going.
Yeah, like out of 5 million or 20 million, only 3 people's data was compromised. Do they really have to report that? I mean, oh, do they really have to?
They have to report it to the individuals that were affected.
Yeah, is there like a threshold? I think somebody mentioned the threshold.
500 or more.
Yeah. I think the threshold is 500. I'm not sure if they've changed that, but it's 500 or more, and they are required to let everybody in there know. But they have that, part where they have to let law enforcement know. If there is a breach, they have to let law enforcement know.
Will that be in the security policy?
So I think that is more of on the law enforcement side and on the government side, that if the breach is more than 500, they have to let customers know. Right. So it has to be in their policy also as well, right? Because everything starts with a policy. And that is kind of also the ideal free card for company owners and the C-suite. So even if, let's say, somebody like the communication in terms of sending out letters and stuff didn't go that well, they can still argue in court if they've been sued, like, hey, like we had it here. Because the execution was was a bit flawed, but our intentions were good. All right, so I think Mike, if you're still having audio issues, then we are going to move. Jamal, please go ahead, and then we move on into cyber news, and we jump into. I think we have full of our news.
Hi,
Yes,
Dr. Du. Yeah, I kind of spoke up previously. It says if they were affected. So the way I'm reading that, if they weren't at any risk, like they may have had a data breach, but if it isn't any risk to those individuals from what is reading, you don't have to notify them. Only if there's a risk is what I've been reading. And it seems that it kind of varies from state to state as well.
Yes. And I think also for companies, how they'll be able to get out of any legal bind. Sometimes, like they just send letters to everybody. Hey, there was a breach. We are not sure if your data was involved, but just be on the lookout. Right? Just to be on the proactive side. Right. So because sometimes there will be a breach, but they don't know the extent of the damage or like the extent of customers whose data have been compromised. So you don't wait 5 months to really see that everybody's was compromised before you send out these notifications, because like to report to your customers, you are under some time obligation to be able to do that within the shortest possible.
They call it CYA.
Yes. So thank you, Renee.
Hi, Akadi.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was having issues with my mic. Okay, so I saw this one which concerns fraud rings targeting retailers, employees in the gift card department. So what they do is they try to compromise the mobile devices of employees in the gift card department. And once they are able to do that, they use it to generate fraudulent gift cards, which they end up using. So that I think that is important because you always talk about employee awareness. So if the employees are well trained and they are aware of these phishing tactics, then they will be able to kind of stop these fraudsters in their track.
Thank you, Mike. And I think that it will lead us into what we are going to look at for cyber news as well. So we are looking at a gas pump, somebody trying to press on the keypad on there. What are we really looking at? So 7 men from Florida, they've been arrested for gas pump scamming fraud. And I think everybody on here should know what this scammers are or scamming itself. Like anybody wants to break it down for us, you go to the gas pump, you are doing the right thing. You bought gas, you paid with your card. Next, you know, there are a bunch of charges on your card. If it's a debit card, people are just using it to purchase stuff. Even if it's credit, still same thing. How does that happen? What really is the process of scamming? How do they really go about doing this?
So they put a card skimmer on a terminal, or in this case, a gas station pump device.
Okay, and how do skimmers work?
So once you put the card skimmer device on a terminal or a gas pump, the person will come back, grab the skimmer, and then go and they would, I guess, download the information, I guess you can say, and then retrieve that card holder data.
Okay, great. Thanks for that explanation. So yes, scammers, what attackers do is they will just create a fake version of the keypad that you are going to see, right? And then also where you're going to insert your card. So they will put it over the real one. So when you insert your card, it reads the card information, right? Stores it in the database of the attacker. And then what they do also is they will put a little camera, right, somewhere here. And then sometimes that they'll put like the actual keypads on there as well. So if you are typing, that also goes to them. So your PIN that you are typing goes to them. And mostly for ATMs, they'll put like a camera on there. So it's just picking all your information as well. So what they do is once they get that information, they are able to recreate your card. And like Mike was saying, sometimes they'll even turn your card into a gift card, right? They'll use it to purchase maybe iPhone 15, and then they'll sell it on eBay for less and get cash, right? So this is a very huge operation that is going on all over the world. And how can you protect yourself, right? Anybody has any ideas? How can you protect yourself from this? Well, it's pretty easy for consumers, but sometimes you kind of look like a moron if you're trying to verify that there are no scammers on whatever device that you are trying to use. Anybody has any clue how you can protect yourself from this? Go ahead.
No, usually. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Ruben
Dr.
had
Joe.
his hand up. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
But me, I love to drive a lot. I do a lot of cross country from state to another state. So anytime I get to any gas station, I like to test the pin. So I'll either want to use my nail to see if that can be lifted, or use my fingers to hold it and move it. That's what I do most of the time before I put my debit card in. So especially all those small shops around gas station, they do a lot of those scam things like that. So even inside the shop, I make sure I look at the terminal. I'll try to hold a little bit just to make sure, and if it doesn't shake, I'm like, this is cool. So I'll just make the and also anytime I make a payment, I make sure I go to my account. And since I protect my account, any transaction that is repeat twice, it is automatically declined. It has to be only once, that's it. And I can call the bank, and the bank can reverse everything and cancel all the transaction and cancel my debit card. So that's how I do mine. So just want to share that.
Okay. Thank you, Lumen. Jamal, please go ahead.
Yes. What I do, first of all, I have a small limit credit card. So if they do get something, they're not going to get much, and they're going to. I'm going to get the credit back. Second thing is I try and use my tap. If it has the Wi-Fi tap on it, the little symbol, I'll use that, and then that eliminates them skimming it. The third thing I do is I have notifications sent to my email and my text messages on my phone. Anytime a charge is made with my number, I am notified. So if it starts charging, I'm going to get that first ding. I'm going to know somebody got me.
Okay.
So that's what I do.
Great insight, Jamal. And I hope everybody's listening and learning from what Jamal and Lumen just said. Those are some of the things that you can do to protect yourself. Now, like when you are at the machine or at the payment POS terminal and you are trying to pull it, or you are trying to lift it, sometimes you kind of look like people will be looking at you like what is he doing or what is she doing? Right? But that is a way that you can protect yourself. And sometimes you are going to end up saving everybody because people don't know, right? They are just going to insert their card. They think, oh, this is Walmart, so everything should be good. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. Olan, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, piggybacking off of what the last gentleman just said, I usually use my credit card. When I go to a pump, I always use the Apple Pay feature. Also go to I use an app like Exxon Mobil app, and I can pay through the app, and I can start pumping my gas that way. That's one. And two, again, like the other gentleman just said, uh, I only use credit cards for everything. I wouldn't use a debit card for anything because debit card is access to your actual liquid cash, right? I use my credit card simply because it's easy to dispute that rather than your actual liquid cash. So if somebody actually got a hold of my cardholder data and made a purchase from Staples. I haven't been to Staples in years. So when I saw that charge in my account, I got a notification saying, "Hey, you got a charge from Staples." I don't even shop at Staples. I haven't been there in like years. So it's good practice that to have those things on your card as far as every time you swipe your card, you make a charge, you get a notification that, okay, this is what you spent, this is what you bought. So that's how I fight that.
Great point, Olan. So, like Olan rightly said, difference between credit and debit, right? It's very hard to dispute, transactions on your debit. They will just give you the runaround, right? But for credit, it's like you just tell them, I didn't make that purchase, that's it. Because that money belongs to them, not you, right? So they are going to get that money back quick. But with debit, they're just going to be dragging feet. So a good practice if you have like a very small limit credit card that you are using for your daily purchases, and then you just pay it off, right? So go ahead, Shongo. Thank you everyone for your insightful take on this. Shongo, please go ahead, and then we'll move on.
Yes, Dr. Du, as an over-the-road truck driver, we have a very problem with skimming. And one of the things that trucking companies do, like the Pilot, TA, they have apps for us to put our information on because they have an old magnetic strip technology. They don't have chips or anything like that with a tap. So you just put your information on the app, and when you pull up at the truck stop, it'll prompt you to if you want to get fuel or not, and it keeps you from using your card. And it works very well, and a lot of trucking companies will start to implement into their system.
Oh, great insight. Thanks. I didn't know that. Kingsley, go ahead and we will move on.
Hello, everybody. So yeah, anytime I'm at the pump station, I just go straight inside the store and swipe over there to make sure, there's nothing locked in the system outside, and that's what I do to protect myself.
Okay. Thank you, Kingsley. So even in the store, the POS system, you still have to check, right? So outside or inside, you still not safe. So you still have to just grab it a little bit, try to lift it up, like Lumen was saying. Sometimes you look like a moron, but it's good to have your money still in your pocket and to look like a moron and to have somebody just take it away. Right. All right. So I know there are some hands raised. We are going to move on and get to our panel here shortly. So kindly hold your fire. We are going to move on. So this was almost an organization that was doing this skimming fraud, and it was like a full-blown company. They've been arrested, so they are facing the consequences of their actions. Now, Ohio Lottery was also in the news, and they had another cyber incident this year, and this incident ended up with over 500,000 customers' information being exposed, and it included their full names, their social security numbers. But then the company says that the integrity of their lottery system was not compromised. So the gaming network, everything is still good. I think people were waiting for that to go bad, and almost everybody who purchased a ticket would have won. And I don't know how they were going to, pull that off, because if everybody won, then they just literally just going to collapse the company because they wouldn't be able to pay everybody. Right. So this was our cyber news for this week. I know there is a lot and there's more out there, but we can only pick two, and some of the interesting ones that affects all of us that we can also learn from, right? So before we jump into our panel discussion, if you are looking to jump into cybersecurity, you are new to the industry, you are new to cybersecurity itself, we encourage you to enroll or take a look at our cybersecurity entry-level course. And also before that, we have a free course, Cybersecurity for Beginners and PCI for Beginners, on our website. Kindly take a look at that. Very comprehensive, insightful courses. But for folks starting from scratch in cybersecurity, or even if you've been in IT for a while and you want to switch into cybersecurity, the cybersecurity entry-level course not only gives you the foundation to begin entry-level roles, but by the time you are done with the internship, you have up to intermediate level cybersecurity experience, not just theory and concepts, but actually hands-on, where you actually get to work on real-world cybersecurity projects. So look into this if you're trying to get into cybersecurity. Our payment security course, our PCI DSS training, is going to begin on the 16th of this month. And if you've not enrolled and you're looking to specialize in cybersecurity, a lucrative niche in cybersecurity that cuts across all industries, I encourage you to look into our PCI DSS training as well. And our GRC internship starts on the 18th. That is next week, Saturday. We are starting our new GRC internship, where you get to work on 10 major security projects. And this is going to be your foundation in cybersecurity. When you go to interviews, you have a lot to say because you've actually worked on a bunch of projects. We have one of our, I think our two past, not this interns who just graduated, the one before them. One of the students, the interns, just landed a job, and she did 7 interviews. 7 interviews. Mostly for cybersecurity jobs, you do only 3 or 4. She did 7 for one company. And, she called me, I think yesterday or 2 days, we were discussing. So how did you really pull it off? She attributed all of it to the internship, and what they are going to have her do, just coming in as their new cybersecurity assistant VP, is to start doing an overhaul on their policies, on their security policies. And I'm like, oh, that is an easy one. You've been there, you've done that, and everything that they were, all the interviews, all that she was discussing and talking about, and things they were looking for were exactly things that she did in the internship. So if you are looking to get that exposure to cybersecurity projects, you've taken Security Plus, you've been to different training, you don't really feel sure of yourself that you can really do the job, this is the place for you to be, right? So with that, we are going to start our roundtable, and I'll hand it over to Isosa, and I'm going to pin our panelists, and we are going to take it from there. Right. Isosa, you can take over.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Adu. My name is Esosa St. Cyr. I'm a cybersecurity GRC professional, and I'm excited to be moderating this panel today. I want to see who's here? I don't see them pinned yet. So that I can direct the questions to them and we can get started.
So Isosa, I think before you go, Olan had his hand up. Olan, please go ahead whilst we are pinning everyone. I think I saw Vincent in here. Go ahead, Olan.
Okay. So for the cybersecurity, excuse me, for the PCI professional course, once you complete the course, do you segue into the internship, or is that something you have to apply for? Or
okay, great question. So PCI comes with its own internship, right? And the GRC internship is a general GRC internship that covers almost everything in the GRC space and more, right? But the PCI, we just focus on and we do PCI internship for the PCI class.
okay, so just to make sure I understand, so you're saying after each course, you automatically segue into the internship, correct?
Yes. So you take PCI, you move into the PCI internship. For the entry level, you move into the GRC internship.
Got you. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Isosa, please go ahead.
So I don't see the pins on my end, but those panelists.
Okay. So Michael, Lumen, Vincent, and then Mohammed should all be on here. I've pinned them. Okay. So I think for you to see them, I got you.
Okay. And I have your names here. Michael, Lumen, Vincent.
All right. So you should be able to see them now. So kindly go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I don't see them, but I have their names. I'm good.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our questions. So the very first question, I want to thank the panelists, first of all, for being here. Thank you so much. And our very first question is going to be, of course, about the PCI DSS version 4 adaptation. So what are the major changes in PCI DSS version 4 that organizations need to be aware of? And what strategies can they adapt for a smooth transition? Panelists, take it away.
I think we will just call them by name. So Lumen can take it,
Okay.
discuss what you're doing in your company, and then Vincent, and then we take it wrong.
All right. Lumen?
Yes. Hey, Dr. Ju, I think we covered this one last time already, right? Oh,
I think some part of it.
some part of it.
Right. So like what your company is doing is what we are looking to,
Okay.
So
on my side, what we did last year and then now, last year before this audit, number one thing that was really critical for us was the RECI matrix. That means responsibility matrix is one of the number one requirement that is due by I think end of last month. That is due, which we have done, and doing it. For us as a PCI, a analyst or expert is easy, but working with the stakeholders, that's where it's very hard. Number one, we set up a meeting since last year to, our lead did that, and we let all the stakeholders, teams, systems, all the managers, directors are aware of those changes. That was the first step that we did. And then we send a sample, of how it should be done to each of the stakeholders. And during the call, we actually show them how critical that ratio matrix need to be done. But some of the, during the audits, let's just say last month audit alone, some teams didn't do it. Some teams just even if have them on a call to go through it or do it for them too, or for them, because we need to understand the environment to be able to actually know their role and responsibility.
Lumen?
I think Lumen is coming in broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vincent can give his take on this.
Okay. Sorry, I got disconnected.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there you
I
are.
don't know what happened here. So, yes, all the same stakeholders, we were having difficulties, especially reaching out to stakeholders. But we were able, during some of those prep calls, we were able to talk to some of them, have, work on like do section like with them to be able to collect any of those evidence and prep them for the audits that we are doing now. So that's my, take on that. So, any questions?
Okay, Lumen, before you got disconnected, you were talking about some teams not doing their part. I don't know if that's what you were saying.
Yes, because before you do an audit, you need to identify, what teams own what based on the scope. So we identify what team are in scope, especially in CDE, CTS. CDE is credit card data environment. CTS connected to system. You see, out of scope is not part of us. PCI doesn't care about that. They care about anything that, any system that store, process, and transmit credit card data, like informations. You see, so before doing that, we were able to identify what team is in scope. Those team is like it's mandatory. They have to get it done for us. But some they don't care because it's a big company. Some teams are in UK, in England, I think Australia, in Europe. So finding them, having them like on a meetings or sometimes you Slack them, you send an email, you send Jira tickets, but they don't care. But we were able to get those when we were doing a prep call for the audits. So, it got sorted out technically.
Okay, thank you so much. Vincent, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let's get your take, please, on this question. Would you like me to repeat the question, or did you already have it?
I got what you were saying. I think I understood what you were saying very clearly. I'll take it from 2 points of views. One from an internal approach, the one we had in-house within the company, and some of the non-technical issues we faced with some of our clients. In-house, I think the biggest challenge was the fact that the new version was a lot to digest. Just like I said last week, the differences are not much, but you still have to like pay attention to them and just to see how they fit in. And some project needed a total reamendment. We had to like break down everything and start all over again. Externally, some of the problems that I saw that we encountered with some of our clients were explaining to them that this new version and telling them some of the things that have changed. There were some, just from my own observation, there were some things that were not required from the previous version, and people don't understand why PCI thought those things had to be in scope now. So it was a lot of convincing to do. You were asking people to show you a part of their business that they didn't necessarily feel comfortable exposing to us as auditors. So that was a very big challenge. So internally, just because it was a lot to read, you had to read up on a lot just to come to terms with it and have a fair grasp of what was involved in the changes in the new version. And then for the clients, it was just asking them to do more than they did before. Like this part of PCI, this new version has a lot of things you have to observe. You have to go see how everything is done and then write a report on it. So those were some of the changes. Internally, it was hard for people to just digest everything. We had other things to do. And then for the clients, from an external point of view, they had to open up other aspects of their businesses, which they weren't very comfortable with doing. So
I see. Thank you, Vincent. Mohammed, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Mohammed is still running a little bit late, but
Okay.
we also have Michael on there. But Michael will chime in during the GRC part. But I'm gonna sit in for the QSAs. So from the QSA perspective, also the change, it was huge for us. We started almost a year and a half out before everybody else because we had to go through training. And within that year and a half, thereabout, there were a lot of changes, although they came up with version 4, but even it was still work in progress, right? They kept adding to, taking out, because I remember one of our training that we went through. So they did an overview and then they did the actual training. So for the overview, some of the things that they mentioned, they came later and then took it out. And even recently, they just came back and took uh, they used to call it like if an organization didn't meet that requirement, there was an opportunity for them to like check them off, but then they still had that chance of going back and getting like certified. So you were not totally going to fail them. They took that off also as well. So there were some few changes here and there as we were moving along. But then for our clients that we're working with, because Vincent was speaking kind of on both sides because he works in a consulting firm. So for our clients, it was really an uphill battle, right? Getting them to see the urgency in terms of the timelines, because what we're dealing with was timelines, right? So March this year, the version 3 was totally going to be retired. So everything leading to March 31st of March 2024 was the timeline, right? So they had almost a year and a half out to plan, but like as always, everybody was just, they thought it was a very long time for them. It wasn't, and even up to date, we still have another timeline up to 25th March, up to 31st March. Up to 31st March 2025, most of the requirements that are best practice now are going to be full-blown requirements that you have to meet. So if you don't meet those that are considered as best practice, you are still going to pass your audit. So convincing clients and helping them to really see the sense in planning. So it all like came down to planning, right? Planning and prepping for the change, because there were not a huge change, but there were some significant changes that companies will have to make to be able to adjust themselves to meet. For me, my advice was even to meet everything that was best practice before you get to 2025. So for us on the auditing side, it was just preparing ourselves and making sure we were more well vested in version 4, understood what was going on, understood the changes, the main changes. So like the ones that were just like cosmetic changes, wording and changing some of the stuff, like instead of saying card holder data, now they were saying account data, which was the right thing to do. Instead of just requirement 1 focusing on your firewall and your routers, it is focusing on your network security controls. So all the systems that we use to protect our network, and it's not only firewalls and routers, right? Those were some of the light ones, right? And then there were other ones that were technical and all those. So for us, being well vested, because we are always considered subject matter experts in this field, right? So if there is any change coming, your customers are looking up to you for advice, for planning. So if you are not well vested in it yourself, then what kind of advice will you be given? So for on the QSAs and consultants part, it was more so on preparing yourself and learning, attending all PCI huddles, and because even for them it was a learning process. They will make some changes. Industry players will come in and say, we think this is not really going to work that well. And then they'll go back and fix it and stuff like that. And even up to date, they're still working on version 4. They're about to come up with version 4.1. That is just going to be, fine-tuning version 4, but not a huge change. So that is my take for Mohammed, since we are all in the, QSA space. So we can move on to our next question.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about challenges in implementation. Now, Vincent did mention, companies not wanting to expose more of their business, that there was more to observe, and Dr. Adu and the rest of you talked about more planning and prepping. I would like to know, what are the most common obstacles companies face when implementing PCI DSS version 4, and how can these challenges be effectively addressed? So outside of what you've talked about already, in them actually implementing, what challenges would you say? Would you say it's just what you've said, or are there more things that they're actually difficult for these companies to implement? Lumen, we can start with you.
Well, on my side, I say having a stakeholders respond back to you are very, it's the hard part. That's the hard part, because sometimes when you give them the requirement, you tell them what needs to be done, they don't even respond back to you. They don't care. Since well, we have a chain of like management, and sometimes you have to bring it up so that they can discuss with them, so that they know how critical this situation is. That's the only way sometimes you can bypass. Even right now, as I'm speaking to you, we have one stakeholders. He's based in Canada, and we had a prep call with him, and somehow he was saying this application is is no more. Okay, but okay. Can you just provide us now the new list of all the application that you own? That's it. He disappeared. For almost 3 weeks now, we could not find him.
Wow.
You see, so now my manager is asked, hey, where are we? How come this taking over? Okay, every day we are doing status update, we are doing reporting. So how am I gonna finish my job and he's the senior manager too? Everybody that we contact in his team, no one is saying anything, no one is responding. So those are the things. But but the only person that can solve is our manager. They're gonna do meeting before our senior directors and all of that. Then they'll take it up there. Me, I've done my job. So I'll say those are the obstacles that I get. Especially implementing new, PCI, yes, PCI requirement. There's other teams, but we cannot, go through all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lumen. Vincent, you want to add to that?
Yes, I think the biggest challenges that I've seen when it comes to implementation from a client's perspective is that a lot of them, just like to piggyback on what Lumen was trying to say, that a lot of them don't really understand that things have changed and it's no longer business as usual, even though they were quite used and just stuck in their ways on version 3, and version 4 is requiring them to do a lot more. It's very risk centric, so they have to pay attention to that. Off the top of my head, I remember a client that I worked with. It was perhaps the first one with this new version, who was just quite contrarian, just always very resistant to change. And it was kind of hard to just get him to provide evidence of the things we were hoping to see. Under the new version, there's an emphasis on continuous risk management. You have to be aware, even though you don't have risk, the vendors you're doing business with, now you have to pay attention to them, because this is one of the requirements. Before, you could just check off the box to say, yes, our vendors are clean and all that, or you didn't even have to provide any details about your vendor. But now, even if you think you have zero risk, which is almost impossible, if you think you have a clean environment, you have to then pay attention to your vendors. So I think this new version kind of integrates continuous monitoring into the whole thing, and rather than treating compliance as a one-time thing, like just checking off a checklist on an item on a checklist, you have to pay attention to it. So in terms of implementations, I've seen that a lot of companies tend to struggle with that, just because this is asking them to do more than they would ordinarily have done. So implementation has been pretty hard for them.
Dr. Adu, also, could you speak to that? And also, what has been your experience, Dr. Adu, when it comes to stakeholders not responding? I mean, they are the stakeholders. If they're so resistant to change, how are you going to do anything?
Yeah, so I think before I go, Olan had his hand up, and then now Jamal. we will let them in real quick, and then I'll jump in.
Okay, Owen, you want to go ahead and ask your question, and then Jamal will do that after.
Okay. Yes. So I saw from hearing what these consultants have said so far. What was interesting was you guys said that the clients are giving pushback to follow the 4.0. It's hard to convince them to do 4.0 compliance, which is interesting because like if you don't do it and something happens, you'll get fined. So why are they giving pushback? I'm just confused.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Can I answer that? Oh.
I think before Lumen comes in, I have a very good answer for that. So they are giving you the pushback because they are not the owners of the company.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm only the network engineer. If you get fined, I mean, what do I care? Like the worst you can do to me is to fire me. Right. So if Lumen wants to get into my business and he's questioning our network diagram and why this, and probably we've been pushing the network diagram update off for a while, and Lumen is chasing us around, we're just going to ignore him. Right? So it's because, so mostly just to piggyback on that, also into that, like Isosa's question, how to get around, some of the players who will give you the pushback. Like I always tell our students who are working as consultants now, and if you get that pushback, because that is one of the biggest issues that you're going to encounter as a PCI, analyst, PCI, compliance manager, whatever role you are going to be in, is people are just going to give you the runaround. Now, how you do that is to learn some really good office politics, we're also not stepping on anybody's toes. So mostly what you do is your PCI assessment starts from the top, right? So it's your CISO and them who are going to commission the QSA company to come and do the audit, or the contractor, the consulting company to come in and help. So if you send an email to Olan, the network engineer, you need these things, and they are pretending they don't see, they are totally ignoring you, you can follow up. Now you will CC the CISO or the VP or whoever, director of cybersecurity, and then you bring him in, right? You just bring him into the fight, just like how Japan brought America into Second World War. They are there minding their business. Then you are going to, let's say Jamal is the CISO, right? I'm sending the email to, I've sent it to Lumen a couple of times. Lumen totally ignores me. So then I will start the email with, Mr. Jamal, our conversation about how urgent the PCI DSS assessment is, and looking at your timeline, which is, you have only 2 months to complete your assessment. I think per our conversation, Lumen will, is playing this part, and he has to give us this information within the shortest possible time. I know Lumen is busy. We've reached out a couple of times, but I just want to bring this to you. So not really throwing Lumen under the bus, but actually throwing him under the bus.
Right. Okay. All right.
All of a sudden, Lumen just sees his email, magically he sees all the emails you just sent him, and he replies, right?
Okay.
Right there.
I would say it's also good to keep a paper trail, or in this case, email.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, Dr. So just to add to what you just said, well, some teams, they are new.
Mm-hmm.
Some teams, they are very scared. They like on a prep call, they are like, we are new, we are scared, we don't know what the assessor going to ask that. And then we are like, hey, that's why we are here. Don't be scared. This is a free zone. It's just a mock audit. We're going to ask you a question. We're going to tell you what they're going to ask you. The assessor going to ask you on a call. We're going to be there to support you. If the assessor asks a question that we think is not relevant, we're going to tell the assessor, no, it's not for this team, it's for another team. Things like that. And on top of what you say, by passing those stakeholders, we have done it. We have been doing it. In fact, some of those like stakeholders, you send an email, then we CC our director, our senior director. We don't go to the CISO yet, because if we go to that level, it's going to be like a big meeting for the whole entire company. So we don't do that one, But usually I'll start with my manager. The moment I put my manager in the email, somehow The next day, I'll get a response back. Then if you are not getting a response, then you add all the director and senior director. Before you realize, boom. But some of them still, they don't care. That one, I just let my manager to discuss it with them. I don't bring them to the CISO. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamal, what's your question?
Hi. Yes, Dr. Lee, you kind of confirmed that was exactly what I was going to plan to do. Not try and step on anyone's toe, but bring somebody else into the fight. So I know that's good now. So the other thing was when you said that they don't want to expose. The other gentleman was saying they're not comfortable exposing their information. What kind of information are they uncomfortable exposing to you, and you're the one that's trying to protect them? That's one question that I had.
Okay. For example, for PCI, currently user access review need to be done. Some team, they are not doing it. How are we going to be in compliance? The assessor will automatically fail us. So we know. We're going to tell you, get one done ASAP, set as evidence, and be ready for this. We'll tell you all you need. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but you said they weren't comfortable sharing certain information.
Yeah,
because that was Vincent.
That was Vincent.
Yeah, Jamal, let's see that. Remember what I said last week about audits being very difficult. Sometimes when you think you have very good controls in place, like you're doing your job, but when an auditor comes down to actually access those controls, you find out that your controls, why they might be good, they might not be the best. So an auditor might ask you, or might have some record.
I got you. It sounds like you're saying that they're afraid that they're not drum tight. And
Yes,
they don't want
exactly.
to expose themselves and look like they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. The fear is always that an auditor might come around. That's why people are afraid of audits. The fear is always that an auditor might come around and find something, and then we get in trouble. I'll give you an example. I was with a client in San Diego yesterday, and we were reviewing their application development process, just how they write codes for their software. And I was talking to the chief developer, the head of the dev team, and I wanted to find out how they review codes. For secure software development, when you write codes, someone else is supposed to review those codes just to make sure it's clean and all that. But teams don't do that. Now, this was a very small team. They run Agile and they just CI/CD. They just write codes and immediately they deploy them without a thorough, formal review process. Now, they can do that and get away with it. But if you're going to audit them, you have to talk about things like that and probably give them a recommendation. That's why people are so set in their ways, like what Lumen is saying. Accounts should be reviewed. Like if you're doing AIM, identity and access management, you're required, or the best practice is to review accounts every 90 days, meaning when someone gets fired or someone leaves the organization, you disable their account. But those things are hard and people don't pay attention to things like that. But when an auditor comes around and drills down, they find things like that. And then you have a report that is full of exceptions. So people don't want that. That's why people would withhold information because they know that when you drill down, when you shine the light on it, you will find something which they don't necessarily want you to see. That's how that goes. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, you helped. That was very good. But it seems like there's some training. If that's the issue, it seems like there's some training that needs to be done because that is in violation of the change policy. Correct?
Well, yeah, yes and no. Look, it all depends who is conducting your audits and how bad your system is. I'm a consultant, I'm auditing what Lumen is doing, and he's done all this effort. And I see that even though this is not a perfect control, it is sufficient. Remember, the standard is you have to meet the minimum requirement. There's no law that says you have to go above and beyond, right? If you're meeting the minimum requirement and there are still some lapses there, an auditor might let you get by and just be, okay, improve, don't do it next year, we probably will write.
Okay, I thought that was part of the requirement, the change policy that has to be in place. So if they're writing code and they're getting ready to introduce and make some changes,
Yes.
like you said, that's supposed to go through the QA. That's a change. They're changing it. So that's supposed to be reviewed by someone, and you're supposed to have controls in to catch anything. So they can't just put something out there that hasn't been tested.
Yes, you're right.
So right. So that's what I'm saying. That's a violation of the change policy that should
Oh
be in
yeah,
place.
that's a in that case, if it happens like that, that's a clear exception. So you give them a write up for that. So that's how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I had another question. I can't think of it now. If it comes up, I raise my hand again.
Okay.
so
Thank you.
Thank
Also,
you.
yeah, can I
so
come
when
in?
it oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, one thing that I wanted to add is remember when we do audits, we are very careful and we are very polite. It's like you going to someone environment and you are telling him what you are doing is wrong. Sometimes they don't like it. They take that like very negatively and talk back at you very badly. So we go there before, and then it's like, okay, we explain them what we are doing. We are not here, to offend anybody or create any problem. We are here to learn and understand your environment so that we can relate all those information to the requirement and see what need to be done so we can be in compliance. So we do that prep like mentality at the beginning so that there is no confrontation. I don't know if you understand.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know the way I go in, like I do QC. So the way I go in, I let them know, listen, we all on the same team. Okay, I'm just trying to keep us both out of trouble. That's what I'm here to do. We're going to get the job done. We're working together to get the job done, but we just have to do it in compliance. And so I let them know I'm not the boogeyman because that's who they think you are. So I get it.
That's a very good point. And I like how Lumen says when you go, it's like you're going into their home and you don't really want someone to come to your home and tell you everything's wrong with your house. You have to be very polite. So I like that. That's really good. Dr. Did you want me to take a few questions from the audience or do you want me to continue with our questions?
Yes, we can take questions from the audience and then we move on.
All right. So Chris has his hand up. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks, Esosa. I just want to ask as regards PCI requirements around user access review frequency. I hear it's about quarterly. It should be done quarterly. Is that black and white? Is it set in stone? Because I've had previous conversations where, from a design perspective, access provisioning within the environment is based on role-based access, right? And how they design it is such that they define all the roles required within the organization. And when any new employee comes, they just assign that person to the relevant role. And when you're assigned to your role, you have all the access you need to perform your job. Now, once they've designed that properly, the argument from a risk assessment perspective is that they no longer need to perform the quarterly user access review. They can do that either twice in a year or once in a year because at the end of the day, there's no risk, right? So there's little or no risk for someone having inappropriate access privileges. And as regards termination of outgoing employees, they have like an identity and access management tool that automates the process. So as soon as you go and the ticket is locked by HR, the system automatically takes out your access privileges. So if the organization has matured to that extent, would they have to just perform the quarterly user access reviews for the purpose of fulfilling compliance for PCI, or is PCI flexible enough to understand these unique circumstances of the organization and say, okay, fine, your environment was well designed, fine. If that's the case, you no longer, this doesn't really have to rigidly apply to you. So I just want to know what the perspective of some of the panelists around this, because you guys have more real life experience on these things.
Okay, I think I'll take this first. So for PCI, when it comes to identity and access management, what PCI preaches is having a unique ID for all users, right? PCI discourages shared accounts. So no sharing of accounts, be it admin accounts or individual accounts, right? So there's nothing like there's one account for everybody in finance that they can all, log onto one computer and do stuff, and we don't know who was logged on at what time. So PCI preaches, they push for individual, unique ID to be able to identify and track and trace everybody and all the activities that you're doing. Now, in terms of account review, best practice is annually. It's not quarterly, right? So it's annually. Now, and in terms of what you're talking about, PCI being flexible or not, now PCI is flexible than any other framework out there, right? PCI, now for all other frameworks, they go with what we call the defined approach, right? So you have to meet this, you have to meet that, you have to meet this, you have to meet that. Now, PCI has the customized approach where they allow you to do whatever you want to do, but still meet the original, like their intent. So if the intent is for you to make sure your access control is very strong and you are not using shared accounts for your members or your staff, now you are at liberty to do it any way that you want based on your maturity, like your security maturity for your organization, right? So you can go above and beyond what they are looking for in terms of like their minimum requirements, right? So you can do anything and do more than it is required. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to justify and do your risk, your targeted risk assessment to be able to justify what you did and the steps that you put in place to still meet the original intent. That is, at the end of the day, the main intent is we should be able to track what everybody is doing on the network, on like different systems to specific individuals, right? There is nothing like I logged in, Isosa logged in, but then we don't know who logged in. So if you want to put in something else in place that is going to meet the same requirements without even necessarily giving everybody a unique ID, but you have to be able to justify, right? So, but for best practice across all frameworks, identity and access management, your account review is for best practice annually, but if you want to stay ahead of security, you should do it quarterly. So you don't have to wait that long. And then also for, I think the last one that you're talking about in terms of like termination of, that is also part of the identity and access management catalog. But in terms of roles, so assigning and also going back, you started with when they create roles, like they do role-based access. That takes the burden of doing your quarterly reviews, right? Account reviews. Now, even if quarterly reviews was set in stone, if you do your role-based access, that still doesn't take away the fact that you have to do your quarterly reviews, right? Because guess what the quarterly reviews are for? That is supposed to be the safe net that is going to catch anything that went wrong. So let's say Olam just got employed. We onboarded him. We were going to put him in the role that was maybe like an admin role, but then we ended up, whoever was doing it, there is human error. They ended up giving him twice the access that he needs, or they put him in a different role, right? So, or maybe he was a normal user, but then ended up giving him an admin role. Now, if you say we are assigning roles, we are giving access based on roles, so we just put you in the role and you assume all the privileges that comes with it. Now, somebody didn't do their job well, and they gave him the wrong role, right? So he has access all right because he's a normal user. If you've given him admin rights, he will have access like any other normal user, right? And have even more, but he doesn't even know he has admin rights. So he can go to some folders and click stuff on the shared drive, and they open because he have that access and he's playing around. So if we don't do the quarterly or the semi-annually or the annually, we're not going to catch mistakes like that. Right. So hopefully that helps. Now, Lumen and Vincent, if you have something to add, you can go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Adu, let me quickly say real quick what you said was exactly what I was about to say there. Like for the guy who asked the question, quarterly reviews are required. It's not like you can't do it. You can implement all that processes, but there are things you won't catch until you go in there manually and actually fix those errors. Quarterly reviews are required for the things that you just laid out to you. And I'll give you an example. You talked about privilege creeps and privilege escalation. Sometimes people retain privileges they no longer need. Take, for instance, if you do your method and you just add everyone to a group. If I'm in a group and after a week, I've been moved away from that role and I've been added to another group, if you don't manually go in there and remove me and remove my privileges from that initial group, I tend to keep those privileges, even though I no longer need them. And that's what we refer to as privilege creep. So these are like checkpoints to just help you. They are best practices for a reason. The idea is that if you do a quarterly review, especially for a very busy organization, some organizations can have a full quarter without hiring someone new or letting anyone go. Some every week there's someone coming and there's someone going. It all depends on the nature of the organization. That's why you have those best practices in place.
Thank you, Vincent. Loman, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think Dr. Ju talks about everything. Everyone talks about everything, but I just want to add a story, a little story really quick. When I was in the Navy, I was in logistics, right? And I was E3. Why? I don't know what happened, but I have captain access. Can you believe it? So we are talking about the captain of our squadron. The captain is he's our top one. What the hell do I have access? How did I find myself? I didn't really know. Every time when we go on a ship, you're on a deployment. Me, no one, like even chiefs, all my chiefs, all of them, they don't have access certain time. But me, Lumen, I have access to all the website, everything. So even some of my supply, they're like, hey, Lumen, how come you're them? I'm like, I don't know, it just worked for me. So that story went to IT. And I just, Lumen have captain access, so I don't know how he got it. I don't know. But if they were doing a user access review, they would have catch that. You see, they were not doing it. And then the second one, they fix it. But guess what, Dr. Ju? There is one website where you go to, you can access all the government, right? But me, when I go there, through them, I can go to Facebook to go. One day they said, how do you do all of that? I don't know. I just go here and I'll do it. And also, they finally did a review and blocked that also because they are not user access. Just to make it short, okay? That's what I wanted to give you guys, that story. And also, depending on the company business, that's how all the compensation control is set. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lumen. Okay, so Alan, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Sosa. It's a great question, great explanation. We heard about the process and implementation of there. I have one question to ask the panel, me as a grandpa, to understand it easily. Can we mention a couple of requirements as a major change? Like, for example, I know the password used to be 8, and then now it's 12 or plus, something like that. Can we mention a couple of requirements as a major change? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Alan. So the password used to be 7 characters. Now it's 12. And if you are, and also one change, you have to, you have to change your password every 90 days. Now, if you use your password together with other factors of authentication, so if you are using MFA together with your password, then you don't have to do the 90 days change. So those are 2 big changes, just in line with passwords, since you started with passwords. Now, other big change for requirement 1, it was targeting only firewalls and routers on your network, right? So until this new requirement, this new this new version came, if people had intrusion detection, they had like proxies and others that they were using to protect their network. We were not focusing on them directly, even though they will still be considered because they were in scope. But now they've taken away just firewalls and they've made it more general to cover everything. So they've made it network security control systems, right? So another big change. And then what? Like there's a whole list. I think we did a session on that where we went through some of the, major and little changes like this. But offhand, those are like the ones. And then also one big change. They used to refer to like account data and card holder data, right? One of the minor changes is mostly they were referring to do not store card holder data, but now they change it to account data because storing SAD, which together with card holder data makes account data, was forbidden, right? So they didn't even think anybody will, go to the extent of storing it. But now they've made it general. So all the information on your credit card and debit card is called account data, right? Part of account data is your cardholder data. Another part is your sensitive authentication data. So now they've made it account data. They call all of it account data in terms of protection and everything to cover everything. So in case probably authorization didn't go through and somebody is still holding on to to SAD, that is sensitive authentication data, it is still under consideration, right? So those are some of the changes. If other panel members want to add something to it also as well.
Lumen?
Yes, that question I think it's a big question. I think Dr. Jukowa-san, I can't remember everything on top of my head. Yes, it's something I have to look up my documents, but I know requirement 6.2 vulnerability management that has been changed. Requirement 10.2.5 monitoring and logging, that requirement has changed, which organization must implement real-time monitoring and logging of all security events, which we have been doing during these audits. Okay. Third-party security, I think that one is requirement 12.8.5. That one changed also. Encryption 3.5.2 also, that one, they have to use a TLS 1.2 or higher. Yes, those are things that I can remember top of my head. There is more. Thank you.
I think this new version covers a lot more of the IoT devices too. Before, it doesn't do just everything that can increase your threat landscape is covered in the new version. So those are some of the very significant changes. There's no person that knows all the requirement offhand. You have to go read it up and see how it applies, but those are some of the very significant changes. Like this is more accommodating. It accommodates all of the threat landscape, especially with this IoT devices that are everywhere. Whatever is involved in processing of the CDE is captured in the 4.0.
Thank you so much, Vincent. Let's see. We have Ismaila. Could you go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to participate in this chat. My question goes towards the integration of digital assets, for instance, like cryptocurrencies and other digital assets that are being integrated into the mainstream payment systems. Is there any specific challenges as PCI DSS professionals face when it comes to these payment systems, and also the integration of these digital currencies into the payment systems?
Can I come in? On my side, I don't have any take on that because my company doesn't accept any cryptocurrency. We do points and payment and credit cards and all major credit card brands. So I don't deal with any cryptocurrency.
Okay, thank you, Loman. Vincent, did you want to add to that?
No, I don't do crypto. I don't know anything about it. I don't even believe it's real money. So I don't dabble into cryptocurrency at all. So
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on to some other questions. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions from the audience. We're going to go ahead and move on because we have quite a number of questions here to go through for our panelists. And what I would do is that after we're going through the questions, I'll come back to the audience and take your questions, okay? So for those of you, you can just put your hands down for now and then we'll come back to you. But those are wonderful questions. So let's move on to GRC's role in PCI DSS compliance. How does governance, risk, and compliance team, how does the GRC team, how do they play a pivotal role in the implementation and maintenance of PCI DSS standards within an organization? Vincent,
Can
you
you
can
hear
start.
me?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that yeah, this one is for me. So yeah, so with GRC, basically GRC is kind of like the mothership, right? So we have GRC and then we have all the other, frameworks and other areas that falls under GRC. So with GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, right? So the compliance area of GRC addresses all the audit areas and
Michael? Okay, I think we lost Michael for a little bit. Let's just give him a few more seconds.
yeah, hello, can
That's
you hear
Michael.
me?
Okay, go ahead. Yes, Michael. You were
Yeah,
saying?
okay. Yes, I was saying yes. So basically, so PCI comes in play when it comes to like the risk, the risk aspect of GRC. So like for example, for like my company, for my company per se, we don't actually so we are in compliance with PCI, but we have a third party running our PCI, right? So that tells you how intensive and how hard it is to have a company go through a PCI audit. So basically, our management just decided that we don't want that headache, so we just pay, a third-party company a lot of money, and we let them handle all our PCI, headaches. So, and with that, generally, once they basically they run our program, PCI program, so then they'll provide us with a report, and whenever there's like a third-party risk management, and then they request for a PCI certificate, that's when we show that hey, even though the internal team doesn't run the PCI program, we still are in compliance with PCI because we have a third party running our PCI program, right? So, and so yeah, so as for GRC, basically that's where I would say PCI comes into play. So basically it addresses the compliance area, which is auditing, right? So PCI is a framework that that the company gets audits against. So just like PCI, SOC 2, NEST, and all the other framework that I've mentioned earlier. So hopefully this addresses your question.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. Does anybody else from the panel want to answer that question?
yeah, so most times, like Michael said, like rightly said, the GRC analyst is sometimes the go-between between the link between the auditing firm and the people who are being audited, meaning the people who need the PCI, trying to meet the PCI requirement. So the GCI, all that evidence, you can get to meet the people, except it's absolutely necessary that you capture some interview statements directly from them. But sometimes most times you're just dealing with a GRC analyst, speak environment, and they can walk you through it. Except when it gets very technical, and you might ask them to bring a subject matter expert to just help. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Loman, did you want to add to that?
Well, I think everyone covered everything. The only thing that I wanted to say is that my company has a GRCP, which is governance, risk, compliance, and privacy. So we have each team. Although I'm a part of the GRCP, but I'm only doing compliance. I only collect what I need from risk team or governance team or privacy team. And but if there is a meeting with the our director, we all meet and and discuss. Other than that, that's it.
That's it. Well, thank you so much, Doc. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes. So I want to address Ismaila's question first about the blockchain and cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency is not part of the payment uh, card industry, right? Cryptocurrency is on a different lane altogether. So it doesn't even come in when it comes to PCI because it doesn't involve like card, like the movement of credit card or debit card information. Right? PCI focuses specifically on the transmitting, storing, or processing of credit card, debit card information that we call account data or card holder data, if you are looking at just card holder data. So they are on two different tangents. They don't even cross anymore. Right. I think when cryptocurrency was at its peak, some folks started making cards out of where they will put your crypto money on there. But still, unless they collaborate with Visa, Master, American Express, and any of those companies to have their name on those cards, then they will come into the picture. Either than that, crypto is on a totally different lane. So, and also coming back to GRC, now PCI is under, like Michael said, the mothership is GRC, and everything, governance, risk compliance, and data privacy, they all fall under GRC, right? So PCI obviously falls under GRC as well. So everything that you're doing in PCI, it falls under the compliance side. But then the beauty of it is that when you get into the requirements, they all touch on governance, risks, compliance itself, data privacy as well, right? And that goes for almost all frameworks. They all touch on, because all the policies that we are, reviewing, all those policies, they fall under governance, right? The targeted risks assessment that we are looking, if you're using compensating control, the risks assessment that you're doing as a company, they all fall under risk management, right? And then just your compliance with PCI DSS or any other framework falls under the compliance umbrella. And then also the protection, the whole entire goal for PCI is to protect credit card and debit card data, which falls under data privacy and data protection as well, right? So GRC covers everything that you do in PCI, and PCI also kind of covers everything GRC. Hopefully that helps.
All right, thank you, Doc. So let's talk a little bit about integration, specifically integrating GRC and PCI DSS. So can you discuss the integrations of GRC frameworks with PCI DSS requirements? How do these systems work together to enhance cybersecurity measures?
Yeah, and I think Vincent even touched on this last week, right? So as we said, this framework is basically more or less, for the most part, do the same things, right? So that's where the word mapping comes in. So like, let's say you map a SOC 2 requirements to PCI or to ISO, more or less, right? It's all about best practices, right? So generally, if a company it's in good shape, right, and has a good framework that it maps its internal controls to, you can find like 90 or 95% of those controls may be applicable to PCI as well, right? So that's why it's always advisable, right, to have one framework as a company. So, I mean, it's always better to have one framework that you do well than have two or three that you barely do well, right? Because once you have one framework that actually works and actually, helps ensure to do the work that it's designed to do, it actually helps. Because some companies, they might be having two or three frameworks, but then they barely comply with those frameworks, right? And you have one company that actually has only one framework, but actually sticks, and strictly follows, the requirements of that framework. So basically, with PCIs, I would say basically, so like my current company, we are actually in compliance with SOC 2, right? So we do SOC 2 and we do ISO. But and we always as well also try to map our policies, so internal policies and cybersecurity policies to ISO as well. And you can find most of the ISO controls, you can find them in PCI and vice versa, right? So most of the requirements from the different frameworks are interchangeable. So right. So for best practice, I would say it's always better to have one framework, stick to that framework, and ensure that you actually do that framework well, rather than having different frameworks that you barely do, right? And hopefully that answers the question.
That's a very good point. Anybody else want to comment on that question?
Yes, so sir, I'll give you an example. Think about vendor management. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, think about vendor management. It's companies can't work in isolation, So when you do like what Michael does, GRC, you're also in charge of managing all your vendors. And then when you do PCI, just like I said, it's one of the requirements now that you have to like be very conscious of all your vendors, like you have to take their security into consideration. If you're good on your end, you also have to validate that the vendors who have access to your own environment and to some of your resources also maintain optimal security, meaning they have to meet the same level of security that you are meeting. So it's very important. So PCI and GRC is all interrelated. Like Michael said, all these frameworks are interconnected. Another thing I've noticed in this very new version is that it kind of then connects to other existing frameworks. PCI used to kind of be very esoteric before, meaning it was just something in isolation, but now it's gradually been mapped to all other frameworks. So in most cases, you can use some of the answers you've used for other audits to even answer PCI questions now. So that's some of the connection between PCI and GRC.
Thank you. Anybody else? Lumen?
Nope,
Yeah,
I'm good.
You're good.
okay. Yeah, and I was gonna make this little comment. So like this is it's for personal view. So I believe like it's easier to move from GRC to being a PCI expert than vice versa, right? Because most often you hear from people who just, maybe with no cybersecurity background and they want to straight up jump into PCI, right? And like you try to convince them, no, like first you want to build your fundamentals, right? And how do you build out basics and fundamentals in cybersecurity, right? GRC is the perfect, right? The perfect focus if you want to build your fundamentals. And then from there you can jump into PCI, you can jump into SOC 2, you can jump into ISO, right? And what do I mean by building your fundamentals? So with GRC, basically, it's going to provide you with all what you need to be able to succeed, right? In whichever framework you decide to specialize in. So with GRC, and I think Dr. David brought it up earlier, you're going to do policy reviews, right? So let's say, okay, you jump straight into PCI. In PCI, doing your audit, you're going to be reviewing, companies' internal policies, cybersecurity policies, information security policies, right? So you've never worked on developing, updating, or reviewing a policy, right? How do you know how to audit that policies? What do you know? How do you know what to look for in that policies, right? So making sure the policies have been updated, like on an annual basis, looking at the revisions, the dates that, like basically, without that GRC background and fundamentals, you just jumping straight into PCI is going to be a big struggle, right? So that's why my personal advice for anybody on the call, if you, more or less, sometimes you have people who like still, just decide they still want to jump into PCI because they believe they have like some kind of background in cybersecurity, but in order to do PCI, like make sure you have a strong, background and a strong skill set in GRC. Because without that, trust me, like PCI is going to be a nightmare, right? So I do have a decent background in GRC, and myself, I try to stay away from PCI. And thank God, my company decided to, push away PCI and have a third party, you know, company company handle it for us, right? Because it's a headache, not because it's impossible to do, but it just requires a lot, right? It requires a lot and it's very intensive. Everybody on here can do PCI if you get the right training, right? But before getting into that, make sure you build your fundamentals and your skill sets, right, and your basis in GRC. Because with GRC, you're going to get, so like the GRC governance, risk and compliance, the governance side, you're going to be actually overseeing the company policies. So like in my current role, I'm actually in charge of all cybersecurity policies for the company, right? It's my role to ensure that those policies, even the ones that I don't own, are updated on an annual basis. So basically working with the policy owners, right, and making sure they update those policies and then taking those policies through the approval process, right? So approval process, manager has to approve it, director has to approve it, and for like the information security policy, which is the big one, the CISO has to approve it, right? But for like standards and processes, the director level, can approve it. And with GRC, so there are, right, risk management, right? As a PCI auditor, you're going to audit the risk programs of vulnerability management of a company. If you don't understand how vulnerability management works, how are you going to be able to audit that, right? The compliance aspect of it as well. So that's why, it's always better if you build your basis and then your fundamentals in GRC. And then from there, you can move into the because GRC is broad, right? You do a lot of things, right? But it's going to give you at least those focuses in those different areas. So basically, you're going to be getting a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and then you can build upon that to move in an area that, you decide that you want to specialize in at some point. But don't straight up jump into PCI or ISO without having that, that GRC background.
Well, thank you. That's great advice, for those of you that are considering, moving into these parts. GRC, you got to build your fundamentals. Very well said. Dr. Ardu, did you want to add anything else before we take questions from the audience?
Yeah, on a funny note, I think what Michael was trying to say was that you have to take the GRC internship before you jump into PCI.
Exactly, Dr. Edu, exactly. Dr. Edu is a mind reader.
All right. So from what Michael said, yeah, rightly so. And for most folks who will call and want to get onto the PCI, we will let you know, with no background in cybersecurity or in IT, is a big no-no, right? We encourage you to go through at least the entry level and the internship, the GRC internship, get a very good grasp of security and what is going on, and then you can jump into PCI, because everything we are doing in PCI is still going over everything, in a more focused way, right? So it's like you want to jump into a master's program with no foundation. You have no bachelor's degree in that field, one, and or no bachelor's degree at all, and you just want to jump into it, is going to be a little bit of a struggle. Even though for our PCI program, we take you through 2 weeks of cybersecurity crash course. If you have some IT background, you have some cybersecurity background, that will be enough, to at least let you know if you have any gaps to polish up on those before we jump in. But with zero, if you have no background in anything cybersecurity or IT, and anybody convinces you to get into PCI or into RMF or into any of these frameworks, you have to run. Go ahead, Joseph.
Very well said. Thank you, Doc. So we have Olariwaju. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, this is for Mr. Adu, Dr. Adu. Just to clarify, so the GRC it's better to start from the GRC course than to go into the PCI course, correct?
So just to clarify that more, so what Michael was speaking to when it comes to GRC, right? What does GRC cover? GRC covers everything. GRC covers identity and access management, cryptography, risk management, incident response, everything, right? You have to have a good working knowledge of all areas of security, right? Some folks will come in, I'm not technical, I don't want to be technical. Well, you are not going to do code, you are not going to be coding, but you are not going to be a network engineer, or you are not going to be laying cables, but then you have to understand a network diagram. You have to be able to look at like a network vulnerability scan and identify what is wrong with it, how to do remediation, right? You can't do that if you don't have basic fundamentals in networking from the security perspective, right? Identity and access management. if you don't understand identity and access management, have a good working knowledge of it, you cannot work in GRC or any area in cybersecurity. Right? You can be winging it and pretending but then you are just one heartbeat from a heart attack. Because from any role that you are in, you are going to meetings dreading what is going to happen because you have a lot of gaps in your knowledge base. And like it doesn't have to take you years to be able to really have a good working knowledge in all these areas. Right? If you just pay attention, you sit your behind down, you get into the books, get into the right training, you ask the right questions, you work on the right projects, you should be good. Now, Michael is speaking like this. He started from a health background, no IT, cybersecurity background. But now he's been working for 2 years or so, and he's kicking some behind over there in his company, right? He's even a GRC manager in a second company. And he was able to do that because he had a very good foundation. He went through the internship also as well. And so he was exposed to a lot of these GRC projects, right? So he can speak to them. So that is what we are speaking about. So not if you have some IT background, you have some cybersecurity training, yes, you can get into the PCI, right? Because it's still a continuous learning process. But you have to have some good working knowledge. So for folks who are like, I don't have any of that, but I still want to do PCI, we will let you know, then you are going to be doing twice the work. Because now you are learning cybersecurity and you are learning PCI at the same time. And PCI is a whole beast on its own. Cybersecurity is a whole beast. Although they are the same, but then so it's like, I want to be a surgeon, but I've never been to medical school. I'm not a doctor. So I want to start medical school and still be studying the surgeon stuff. Right. You have to, if you are very ambitious and you have the time and energy, you can pull it off, but it's a lot of work. So hopefully that answers your question. While that we are speaking to is, your basics, your fundamentals have to be strong. Right.
Okay. So
let me just make this small scenario. I had a guy, who was struggling with his job. He had his training elsewhere. He got a job, called, and he thought his problem was because he didn't know AWS. So, Dr. Edu, I don't know AWS, and these folks are like, okay, so what is the problem? He described it a little bit, getting into it. I'm like, your problem is not AWS. Your problem is your fundamentals are weak, because this guy couldn't tell me the factors of authentication. And what they gave him as a list of things he had to do in AWS, he had to make sure he was implementing some form of multi-factor authentication. And he also, I did this, the password, and okay. I'm like, okay, hold it right there. What are the factors of authentication? What factors of passwords? No, factors of authentication. What are they? Guy couldn't tell me. And he has a cybersecurity job for 130 or something. Right? This is kindergarten stuff. So if you don't know the factors of authentication, how are you going to implement multi-factor authentication anyway in any setting? You don't even understand what you're doing, right? So those are some of the things and he thought because he didn't know AWS. You don't have to know AWS. If your foundation is good, you go to AWS, the same concepts that is being used there when it comes to cryptography, when it comes to identity and access management, access control, same principles, same concepts. If you know how to apply it on-prem, you'll be able to do it here. If you do a vulnerability scan in AWS, I don't think ports are going to change. Now, the names, in these cloud systems, they just change the names per vendor, but it's pretty much the same thing, right? So like DNS is port 53. AWS, they call DNS something else. It's still running on port 53. Right? So that is what we are speaking to. Olan, go ahead if you have a follow-up.
Yeah. So for somebody like myself that has knowledge of PCI because of programs I've been in the past, and also me having a Security Plus, the CompTIA Security Plus, I do have a good foundation. So as far as the reason I ask, because I'm like, if I want to jump in,
no, you are good.
Should I do GRC or should I do?
You are good. So it depends on what you are looking for and the level of exposure that you want to have. Like I said, PCI is a country on its own. Right? So if you just want to go in, focus on just PCI, you can do that with the foundation that you have now, right? Now, if you want to go in, okay, I want to do more projects and be able to, work in all other GRC areas, not necessarily focusing only on PCI, then you can just go with the GRC, right? So depends on if you just want to specialize in PCI, and PCI, then you just go straight for PCI, because in the general GRC that we don't do PCI in there, right? We work with other frameworks, but not PCI, because in that, like PCI training is like the least is 3 months of training, 1 month of internship. The GRC training is 2 months. So you see where I'm going with. Although the projects that they are working in there, if they are doing it in their companies, it's going to take them like 8 months and more, and even years, like a year and a half. But they are superheroes, so they do it in 2 weeks. All right, so
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. So Emmanuel Esehile, could you go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. The new program for the GRC internship is starting next week, next Saturday, just a week from today.
Yes.
And I registered on Tuesday. So my question is, I did on Tuesday, and I had a meeting with you on Tuesday. So my question is, how do we get access to the training? Are you going to send a link, or how is it going to run or something?
Yeah, so you are going to receive an email with all the instructions and the details latest by Monday or Tuesday. Mostly like 4 days out is when you are going to get.
Okay. And I want to also quickly say this. From my experience, I think it is better for somebody to do this practical training hands-on before you go to any other, because I've got training somewhere before, as I told you. I have Security Plus, I have CISA, but I've attended a couple of interviews, but to be honest, I don't have hands-on. There's nothing, passing the exam is quite different from practical. That's why I opted for this. So I think it's better. I will advise anybody who is thinking to go for it. So that's it.
Well said, Emmanuel. Very well said. And you can take all the certs and all of that when they start asking you those interview questions, and you speak from experience. It's very different from speaking from theory. So thank you for saying that. We're going to go to our next question, Tomas. Go ahead and ask your question.
I've had a question on this for a while now, working in the GRC, but I can't quite put all of this together as far as AOCs and rocks. So for level 1 merchants, you get a rock after you finish and an AOC. For level 2, do you only get the AOC unless you request a rock, and so on and so forth for level 3 and 4? And then what is the purpose of the ISA? Can they sign off on the SACs for level 2 and lower? And if not, what's the benefit?
Okay, so I think I'll jump in here in front of everybody. So, Thomas, yes, I think I saw you put your question in there. So your AOCs are for every assessment, whether level 1, level 2, level 3, even level 100, right? There is no level 100, 1 to 4. So AOC, all assessments will come with an AOC.
Yeah.
Because the AOC is the attestation saying that, yes, you did the assessment, you passed, you failed. So it's kind of a summary of the assessment that was done, right? Now, for level 1, we use ROC, Report on Compliance, to do the assessment. So all level 1s will have a report on compliance, that is the ROC, and an AOC. Level 2 to level 4, we use a self-assessment questionnaire. So depending on what type you are using, A, B, C, D, or P2PE, or SPOC, it's still going to be an SAQ. And the SAQ also comes with an AOC, right? So for all level 2 to 4, you are going to have an SAQ and an AOC. Level 1, you have a ROC and an AOC. So regardless, everybody will has an AOC, right? Now for an ISA is qualified to do your SAQ, sign it, and submit it to your acquirer and the card brands. Yes. So if your company, you don't have a certified ISA, then a QSA will have to do it.
Right. That makes sense. Right.
But for the ROC, it only has to be a QSA.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then also like because there's a space on our SAC where it says like duly notarized or something like that. So it doesn't have to be like an ISA that signs off on the SAC, just someone who the organization appoints to sign the SAC.
Yeah, so mostly that will be somebody like in the C-suite, so CISO, CIO, or VP, or like a manager, a high level manager of some sort. So aside the ISA signing, or your if it was a QSA who did it, then we also have somebody from the company, a higher level person in the company also signing it there.
I see. Okay, yeah, that kind of straightened things out from my head. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Middleton, go ahead and ask your question.
All right, thank you. So as you all are completing assessments or helping organizations develop their strategy, are you hearing any pushback or general feedback on concerns about diminished customer experience? For example, as it relates to increased authentication processes or just slower checkout timing or processes due to additional controls? Are you getting any feedback from the organizations on that?
Okay, so I'll also jump in here before other panelists. So from our perspectives, and also from assessments that we do, on the customer side, in terms of processing, payments and stuff, nothing has really changed, right? The only problem that companies are having is one, awareness within staff, and then also even within like the compliance, group or team, and then also having a plan and a strategy of how they are going to totally switch to version 4, right? So that is some of the pushback that you're going to have, and then also some of them will be just giving you the runaround because they don't know. Mostly is lack of not knowing, right? So that is causing the issue. But in terms of processing payments and all that, not really much of a change. If not for anything, now it is even going to get more secure, right? Sort of. And then also in terms of things that will let people throw stones and sticks at you at work, like changing passwords and stuff. Now is that like it has even become even easier and better. You just have to use another factor of authentication or a couple of other factors of authentication, and you don't have to change your password every 90 days. So it's even more fun now, right? People don't have to chase system admin around. Why do I have to change?
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So if other panelists want to chime in, they can.
Okay, so Damien Ikemefuna, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. Actually, my question is that because I have heard everybody talking about the GRC, some of us didn't know about this internship you're talking about. So I would like you to throw more light about it so that somebody like me that don't know about it to know if and what it entails.
Okay, I think I'll let Michael go with that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically with the GRC internship, so as Dr. Du said, right, so it's about 2 months. So like projects that you probably do, year round in your company, it's everything is compact and built into a 2 months program. So with the GRC internship, so basically what I'm currently doing at work is what we actually did in the GRC internship, right? So the GRC internship was for about 10 weeks and we worked on 10 different projects. And like every project I worked on during the internship, it's what I'm currently doing at work right now, right? So number one, as I said earlier, like policy review. So with the GRC internship, you're actually going to go through a policy review, right? So how you do review policies, how you update those, right? I'm currently doing the same thing. It's just that I have to do it with more policies on like year round instead of having everything packed in 2 months. third-party risk management, right? So whenever you have a new vendor, how you onboard vendors and how you offboard vendors, right? So you're going to also as well do the third-party risk management. So basically, third-party risk management is doing a risk assessment on any third-party company that you're going to be doing business with, right? So as well as incident response. So during the internship, you are going to go through incident response, how the incident response process work, and also go through tabletop exercises, right? Which I currently do at my job right now. So the GRC, we are in charge of running the incident response, program, as well as, doing the tabletop exercises. So the tabletop exercises actually assigning the different roles. So making sure everybody knows the role they have to play when there is an incident, right? You're going to be doing auditing as well. I currently am an internal auditor for my company as well. So we do SOC 2 and we do ISO. So as well, during the internship, that's something you guys have. So like all what I'm trying to say is whatever you're going to do in the internship is what you're actually going to end up doing once you land your first job. So everything I did, like nothing I did in the internship went to waste, right? It wasn't a waste of time because everything. And even funny thing was, for my interview with like my current manager. So I had an interview on a Thursday, right? So like that week, I actually had different interviews lined up. So I had my first interview with him, and guess what? All I did was just walk him through what I did on those 10 weeks, right? So I just went through week one, So basically the initial assessments, talk to the companies, right? Try to understand what kind of, because number one, with audit, in order to audit a company, you have to know what a company has, right? So you have to know their assets, right? What type of data they handle, and what type of devices they have in there. So like, stuff like that, right? So like with my interview, just ran through all what I did in the 10 weeks. So week one, talked about audits. Week two, right? Risk assessment, third-party risk management, incident response, risk register. So, and my manager was so impressed, and he was like, "Okay, can you talk to my like?" He was like, "I'm gonna hire you, but I want you to talk to my director because he actually is the person. Actually, was the VP. He's the person who has to make the final decision." And mind you, I had other interviews for the next day, but he was like, "No, like he wants me right now. He wants me to talk to his manager, right?" So I told him earliest I could do was 9 a.m. So I actually ended up talking the following day, which was a Friday, to the VP. And after the interview with the VP, I got a call like 10 minutes later from the HR, and they told me, they made me an offer. And then, you can imagine how happy I was, right? So I'm just saying all this to let you know that, like, the GRC internship is the right way to go. So with that, it's actually going to end up preparing you for what you're actually going to do, at your job place. So currently at my job, I manage our policy review process. So I'm the person in charge of all our company policies when it comes to cybersecurity, right? What I say, I'm in the GRC team, right? So it's myself and one other person that's part of the GRC team. So myself and her, we manage our policies, we manage our third-party risk management, we both manage our audits, right? And as well as our incidents response, and on and on. So just want to make the point that whatever you're going to learn in the GRC internship is what you're actually going to end up doing on the job site, right? It's just going to be more intensive, and it's something you're going to do on a yearly basis all around the year, right? Instead of something that you just did as a project, within a 2 month span. So hopefully, I was able to answer your question.
Thank you very much. That was very clear. Also, what I want to know, what is the requirement to partake in this training? And
Okay, yeah. So that as the dude was saying, like I came in with no experience, right? So there's no requirements. Like number one, I would say. So like what I did was I first took the entry level course, right? So the entry level course is where it's actually going to build you up and take you from 0 to 100, right? Because if you come into cybersecurity with no knowledge, you actually want to get that kind of background and skill set that I was talking about earlier. So that's where you learn about encryption, like basically the CIA triad. So Dr. Du's entry level course is going to take you like literally from 0 to 100 if you come in with no prior IT background or no prior cybersecurity experience or background. So what I did was went through the entry level course, and then once I was done with the entry level course, I jumped in straight into the internship, And then I even landed my job right before even the internship was over. So it's doable, right? It's just putting your mind to it and making sure, you actually invest your time. Since you're already investing your money, also make sure you invest your time. And it's doable. It's doable.
Would
So
you mind telling
yeah.
more about the monetary aspect?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely, yes. And I like, yeah, and it's funny because I didn't have folks on this call that actually like Mike, brother Mike, who actually asked the question, a couple of the questions earlier. Like he was even at my house today. Like I have people coming to my house just to see what I do on a daily basis, right? So the money, for this, and GLC, the money is good, right? So like, I'm not gonna give exactly how much I make, but I make between 115 and 130, right? As a GRC analyst for my company. So you can imagine. And I work fully remotely from home. So like, I don't even have to go to the office. I work from home. I work on my own schedule. I'm stress free. Sometimes I choose to work less during the day and work more during the night when my son is asleep, right? Sometimes I work less on the weekdays. I do more on the weekends, right? It gives you that kind of flexibility. So money is good, flexibility is good, and I mean, I don't know, you just can't beat it. So
Actually,
I'm not sure.
okay, thank you very much. Actually, I'm an international student in United States here, so I will be resuming my master's in cybersecurity. So why
Okay.
I ask is after doing the training, the internship, is there a possibility of getting a job while doing my master's?
I mean, it always depends on your status, right? Because you said because like just like you, I also came in as an F1 student, right? So it depends on the status. Because definitely in able to get a job, they're gonna ask you for whether you are, permanent residence and stuff like that. So I don't know what your status is, but it's definitely gonna depend on that, right? Unless you have an OPT, right? So I'm not sure your status, but I'm just just throwing some ideas out there because
Yeah, I'm
I
getting.
came in. Yeah, I came in, just like you as an international student. So I've been through the process and I know how the process is, right? So yeah, so like, yeah, you can get a job, but it depends on your status. So whatever your status says, that's going to determine whether, you're going to be able to work or not in the States.
So what will be my, please, I know I'm going out little out of the scope, but please, somebody should pardon me. What will be my good advantage because I'm about to study to resume my master's in cybersecurity. So what will be my main benefit with this GRC? So what do you think will be?
I mean, yeah, so I would say, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop my number in the chat and you can give me a call so that way we don't hold up the meeting, right? Because I'm sure we have other questions. So I'll just drop my number and then you can reach out to me
Okay,
if
thank you.
that works. Yeah.
Mike,
Okay. All right.
Thank you,
Michael.
Michael. We have one more question from Clement Okegbe. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this program, and thank you, Dr. Adu, for giving us the chance. This is my second time, I think, I registered for the internship as well. The question I actually have to ask is in regards to, I know maybe I could have waited till when the program starts next week, but I just want to put it out there, maybe a little guide. In regards to when the program itself starts, after the hands-on training and everything, do we have some sort of um, assistance with maybe resume or things like that? And also, are there any certification that could actually help also to make it easy, or I mean it'll be faster with your hands-on knowledge to be able to get a job? So those are the two questions I just wanted to put out. Thank you very much.
I mean, Dr. Unless you want me to go, I don't mind going.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
So the internship definitely, yeah. So the way it's structured, right? So we have former students who come as mentors. So you're actually going to be assigned a mentor to work with, like, so it's going to be somebody that is currently working in the field, right? So in that case, you can always reach out to the person. And also, Dr. Do, I know Dr. Do help with resumes as well, right? So it's going to help provide you with a master resume, and then whilst the application process is going on, you can always tailor your resume to the types of job you'll be applying for. But definitely, yes, you do have that assistance, right? So you're going to have Dr. Do as well as your number one resource. And then you're going to have your mentors. So basically, you're going to be assigned folks who have actually also been through the same training, who are actually working in the industry, and then you can always reach out to those folks, right, to seek help in order to, help you maybe make some little touches on the resume that was provided by Dr. Du. Or, if you have like interviews, you can always reach out, right? And then we can help you prepare for interviews as well. So yeah. So I would say like the support system is there, right? It's not like right, one of those places where, because I do have folks who actually like friends who took courses at other places, but then once the course is over, that's it, right? Like there's no chance to go back to maybe to the instructor or stuff like that, right? I was even telling the students who graduated from the last internship last week. I actually had a friend who had to fly from New Mexico to Atlanta and stay with me for a week, right? Because he took the course somewhere, and the course he took came with an internship, but the internship wasn't structured, right? Like the way the arithmetic ones is structured. So he actually didn't get what he was, trying to get from that internship. So he came, stayed with me 1 week to see what I'm actually doing, right? So that way actually he can get that real hands-on. But guess what? If he should have went through the internship with arithmetic, there was going to be no need for him to fly, all the way from New Mexico to my place. That's what I'm saying. Like the way the internship is structured, it's actually going to give you all what you need to be able to succeed as a GRC professional, right? And the support system is definitely there, right? Even if Dr. Du is busy, you can always reach out to your mentors or reach out to any of us, who have been through the program and and who are currently working in the field.
Thank you so much, Michael. Dr. Adu, did you want us to take one more question before we wrap things up? We have Bruce's hand up.
Okay, yeah, we can take one more and then we wrap.
All right, Bruce, this is going to be our last question. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm actually out of Bermuda. I'm retired military too, like Dr. Adu. And he knows I want to get him down, you guys down, the family down in Bermuda. But I had a small security company in Bermuda. I'm actually located in Maryland now. I came up from Bermuda after retiring out the Navy. And I spent a little stint down there. And they picked me up because I was actually a top secret controller in the military. They picked me up to run the security part of the security solutions company we have. And I've been doing it pretty good, but we actually have a cyber part. And I want to do the internship so I can understand better, I guess, how to run our cyber port. We have a cyber part, and we also have a U.S. company that brings cyber to the company, and they want to sell us cyber factory equipment. And I just want I want to know what part of the internship should I sit in? Should I start from the beginning and work my way up?
I'll say all of it. So you have to start. I mean, you can't just sit in projects. So you have to go through the whole entire project to really have the full effect of the internship.
Thank you, Dr. Du. That's what I thought. And I don't want to miss anything. That's why I've been coming to the chat meetings and really appreciate everybody's their history and all the all the troubles. More or less, it helps when you know what other people have gone through, some experiences they've had to go through. I just think, I'm with a great community right now, and I'm back to where I was in the military, kind of security, and that's where I want to be.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bruce. I want to thank everybody. I'm going to just hand this over to Dr. Adu, but I want to thank everyone that participated. Thank you so much to our panelists. And this was great. The time flew by so quickly because it was so engaging. And it was just really, really good questions. Those of you that are wondering how to join the program or how to join or contact Dr. Adu, you have all the information posted several times in the chat. So before we log off, go ahead and copy and paste it. So you have all of those links. The WhatsApp's links are there. Everything you need about the programs are there. And Michael was generous enough to share his number in the chat. So thank you so much, Michael, for doing that. Dr. Adu, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
All right. Thank you, Susa. A great pilot for co-pilot for tonight. And Michael, Vincent, and Lumen, if you can do us the honors, and Isosa also, if you can put in your LinkedIn in the chat, that way people can also reach out, and if they have any questions, any help. And then also on you can, I think the WhatsApp, like the WhatsApp link is also in there, so you can join the community on WhatsApp as well. And that way, if you need any help, assistance, you have any questions, you can push it out there, right? And my goal, we are always building an army of cybersecurity professionals. So we are building this community for us, right, to help us develop and grow as security professionals. So you are more than welcome to join any of the platforms. And then also every Friday, you are more than welcome to join. And we know and we can assure you, you are going to get something for your toolbox and to help you develop. You are never going to go back the same. You're going to learn something. And we're also going to learn from you. So please do show up every Friday night. So as we are wrapping up, I will say thank you once again to everybody, all our panelists, Michael, Lumen, Vincent, who am I missing? I'm not sure. I think Adam Michael couldn't join, and then also Frank and the rest couldn't join. Divine from Boston would have been a great resource tonight, but he had an emergency. He also couldn't join. And Isosa, I really, really appreciate you and the time and also managing the whole entire program for tonight. So we appreciate everybody. We are going to meet next week, same time, God willing, 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday night. And like I always say, you could have been anywhere else on Friday night, but you chose to stay here an hour, 2 hours plus. And I think at the peak, we were almost 130 thereabout. And then also YouTube, I've not checked the numbers on YouTube, but we appreciate you. Help the community grow, spread the word. The goal is to help empower all of us through cybersecurity and to become the best cybersecurity professionals we can ever be. So I appreciate everybody's time. Good night and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.